Well, hey, Terry, my friend, it's good to talk to you again.
It's good to see you, sir.
So, for those of you that didn't watch our first COVID conversation where we talked about addiction, this is Terry LaDow, who is a mentor, a friend, all sorts of smart, crazy number of sophisticated titles and letters behind your name. Is that a good introduction?
That's perfect. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I stumbled a little bit on sophisticated, but
Well,
we'll get through it.
the part I like about it is that I have all these licenses, certifications, letters, and all that stuff, and it still costs me $2.75 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
They should charge you more.
Yeah, I know.
Well, especially if you're having them put all those letters on your name. You want the whole name with the letters.
No. So yeah, nobody really cares, but
hey,
yeah,
not nobody.
I'm sorry.
Not nobody. I mean, people do care.
Yeah, they do. They care more about what I do than the letters I've got, though. So
it's true. And about your beard, people are really fascinated with your beard. Yeah, we're off to a good start.
This beard is 35 years old.
Wow.
My daughter, who is 34, has never seen me without it.
I think that's going to be on my Christmas wish list this year. Then.
I was told that if I want to die, shave it.
Then shave it. Well, okay. Enough about the beard.
Okay.
We're talking today because we're going to look at what isolation, and so we're going to look at it from a couple angles, specifically for people that are physically isolated right now, that are self-quarantined, or that are in shelters in place in different parts of whether it's Texas or California or wherever it is, and happen to live alone. And so what we wanted to talk about that isolation, but then the isolation that we're all essentially feeling on some level because of the separation from what we know. And so you made that comment when we were talking earlier, the separation from what we know. You also said it this way, is like we're being disconnected from everything we're connected to.
Correct. Yeah.
And so give us a little bit of a framework for our conversation with those two sort of ideas.
Well, if you look at the disconnection from connection, is that part of this conversation was based on the fact that you have somebody who's living alone. And so if I've been living alone, my connection is to my work, to my friends, to my people that are outside of my place, but that's my normal. I know I'm going to go meet people. I'm going to go see people. I'm going to be engaged with people. But now, how do I do that? One of my friends who helps support the ministry has been quarantined in place because she has very high risk, and for over 3 months. And if you go and see her, you have to wear a mask, and you don't touch her, and then she wipes the place down, which and it's a very different life. She doesn't go anywhere, she doesn't do anything. And we were talking about that, and she said, I'm really disconnected. And she said, so I can't tell you how I'm excited that you're here, telling me, because we were talking about some of the things we're doing in Nicaragua with her. And that connection, she said, I can't tell you how much that means to me right now. And it's like, okay, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, because I mean, the truth is, like, this separation from what we know and the disconnect from everything that's connected us before, it really does lead us to pursue connection. But oftentimes the easy route of connection is social media. I mean, that's become the ubiquitous form of connection.
Well, yes. the interesting thing is that I can be back to Audrey is her name. She has she runs a company, and she does social media. They have Zoom meetings. They have you know, all the stuff, but that's not connection. I can't touch you. I can't hug you. I can't shake your hand. I can't. So I'm connected, yet I'm disconnected. So
Right.
yeah. So when you look at that, I live in a house. There's 5 people that live in the house, but we don't have a lot of people come over. We don't go out at all, hardly, you know. And when I do, I have to wear a mask, and I have to stand in line 6 feet away from somebody else to buy groceries. And, you know, so the normal part of being around people is very different. I don't know who you are behind your mask. When I'm out walking around, if you don't have a mask on, I can see you. And, you know, we think it's only what, maybe a 6 by 6 square of cloth, but yet that separates us from people in a big way, because we're part of our connection is I can see you.
Yeah. And I think that's the intriguing part of the social media minefield, which is that we can see people there. And so if I go outside, I can't see anybody, I can't touch anybody. So
Right.
social media becomes a substitute for it. But all we're seeing essentially is what people want us to see. And the truth is, like, that leads us to places of sort of comparison and competition that are really detrimental to our emotional and spiritual health, especially if we're isolated and we don't get any dose of reality outside of social media, which is the norm for all of us right now.
But the thing that I just measured you, and you're this big on my screen.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's real life. I have not gained weight. I've actually shrunk
Yeah.
considerably in
No,
COVID.
you just lost it.
Yeah,
And so I can see you and I can hear you, but you're not life size. So when you look at that, now where do I get contact? I'm going to get up and I'm going to go get some groceries. So I'm going to go to the grocery store. I need to go someplace and I need to do things. You know, it's how do I do that? How do I connect? How do I handle this isolation? Because going to Ralph's, which is our grocery store, I'm still not able to do anything other than go get groceries and then come home.
yeah.
You know, the it has changed our ability to have connection with people that we would normally connect with. And something as simple as saying hi to the checkout lady, there's a piece of plastic.
Yeah, everything is different.
Everything is different, and everything is not bringing us closer. It's putting separation between us.
And the reality is I think this is the interesting part of the isolation. And I loved the when we were talking earlier, the original concept was the isolation for people that are sort of isolated, like physically isolated. But the reality is there's isolation with people present as well,
Oh
as
yeah.
everybody is dealing with their own approach to this. But we talked about the basic connection, like just someone to talk to. Those are needs that usually are met in our day-to-day life, whether it's at work on a conversation with a coworker or,
Right.
like you said, a grocery store. There are these basic sort of human connection needs that we take for granted because they're met in our day-to-day. They are not, we don't have to be intentional at all for those connections. They are sort of naturally built into the fabric of our lives on a day-to-day basis. You almost have to be intentional not to have those connections.
The phone rings and somebody says, well, you know, you want to go have lunch, you know, or somebody in the office goes, hey, you know, you're hungry, let's go do something. Somebody says, hey, I'm going on vacation this weekend. I'm going to take my wife and we're going to the Grand Canyon. And yet the rules we're taking the train from Williams we got the COVID-19 requirements to get on the train, and there's seating every other seat. And they said they're going to spray the train at both ends so that we're in a non-threatening environment. Well, okay, so I'm going to get on a train. I get to look out the window, which is kind of cool. But I have a mask on for an hour and 15 minutes or so, which has noised the snot out of me. Because I don't like things in my face. So, you know, it's like we start out, I don't know too many people that are excited about putting on their mask.
Yeah.
So
especially if you have a 35-year-old beard to show off.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it is quite attractive. But you know, this thing is work. I get to trim it and all the other stuff. But what I found out is that for me, the isolation part, even though I have 5 people in my house, and I love them all, there's only so much you can talk about.
Yeah.
There's only so much TV that I can watch. There's only so much before I start to, you know, look around and think, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And it sounds dumb, but I look forward to going to the store because I'm away. I'm free, if you will. And, you know, I get to go to work in my office, which I am in now. And I get to get away from that. And I have clients and I can see them and they're like life size. You know, so it's helped me to not isolate, if you will, at the same level that some people have to, you know.
Yeah.
So
and then I mean, like, as we look at it then, so we're isolated, and even physically isolated, I think is even one step more difficult because there's not even anybody in our physical space that we can interact with. Whether we want to or not is a different story, but even if we wanted to, there isn't anybody. So we get pulled into the artificial connection, which is social media and everything that's going on there, which again creates a lot of opportunity for comparison and sort of competition with ourselves and others that doesn't really exist. So the reality is that we have to be proactive and initiate connection. This is because, again, the natural connection that we had in the life of like going to the office and talking to a couple of people by the, at lunch or in a meeting and a quick conversation in the hallway, getting your hair cut, like all these things that were just part of our natural existence aren't there. So we have to become pretty proactive and initiate connection.
It has to be, I like the concept of purposeful act. You know,
purposeful act, yeah.
We have to do it. We talked a little bit about a guy that has trouble picking up the phone and calling people. And it's interesting because when I call him, his standard answer is, "Oh yeah, I got to call you." It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, right. You're not going to do it. But once a month we meet for lunch and hey, what's up? How you doing? And we catch up and all that other stuff. He hasn't called for 2 months. And I finally called the other day and he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," etc. And I said, "Well, how are you doing?" And he said, "Not well. This isn't good for me." And it's like, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, I don't get out. I don't call people. I don't. And so he's hunkered down in place and it isn't working. I mean, is he surviving? Yeah, but the loss of that connection has really caused an awful lot of stuff. You can hear it in his voice. There's real depression for him, which is something we need to be very aware of.
Yeah, I mean, because like the separation or this isolation, it also plays a trick on us in even the sense of like picking up the phone. Everybody's sort of waiting for the other person to pick it up. like we're waiting for somebody else, whether we don't want to be a bother or we think somebody else should pick up the phone, or or we're just like, they're probably crazy busy or whatever, and so nobody calls.
Right.
And so like if you hadn't called, who knows how many months it'd be, right? And
Yep.
so everybody's just sort of in this nebulous. And I think part of it is because we've lost the art of conversation over the telephone. Everything has become shorter communication by text, or and so there's this potential opportunity here for us to sort of fight the isolation by picking up the phone and calling somebody.
The old-fashioned pick up the phone and call people, I remember. And there was something, I don't want to say magic, but there was something magic about it. I mean, it was like there's somebody on the other end, and we'd either catch up or make plans.
Yeah.
And I like that. Now, it's wonderful, and it's interesting when we talked about this. It's interesting. I can see you, you can see me. We're Zooming, and that's wonderful. But there's something about, at least for some of us old folks, there's something magic about when you pick up the phone and you call somebody and you say, "Hey, how are you?" And it isn't, you got 5 minutes, let's do FaceTime. It goes back to the purposeful act that I want to connect with you. So can we plan those kinds of things? What can we do as a person, as an individual, as a group, to say, I want to be nose to nose with you the best way or any way that I can. Texting is not good.
Right. It doesn't have the same.
It doesn't do. Sending me pictures is nice, but if we don't FaceTime or WhatsApp or something where I can at least see you, and you asked me earlier, how's it going? And I told you some good stuff, and I told you some stuff I'm struggling with. We need to do that. We need to let people in, if you will. We need to.
Yeah, I think that brings up the other point, that we have to be careful and guard who we connect with. They have to be good for us. Like this isn't a time to go through your whole glossary or your whole calendar list and just start calling everybody. They have to be especially in moments of stress and isolation. We need to make sure that when we reach out and we have, like you said, the purposeful act, that it's pointed in the direction of health for us, not something that's just, I need to talk to somebody.
If you get to, I need to talk to somebody, you've missed how many opportunities to have a good connection with people. Because, like we have depression, and then when you get depression, you tend to not do things. So then depression can move into desperation. I need to talk to somebody, I need to do, and then comparison jumps in there, and there's all the things that don't go well. So, there's a couple things. Are you willing to pick up the phone and call somebody? Are you willing to FaceTime somebody? Are you willing to Zoom somebody, or, whatever that is good for you, is safe for you?
Yeah.
And one of the things that in my office, people say, well, everybody else is doing well. Well, how do you know that? Well, just look at what they're doing on social media. It's like, okay, because of this, there is a little more honesty, little more. But when you look at something and everybody's always wonderful and everything's cool, it's like, that's not me. So there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah, me.
And since nobody's calling me, and it must be, and so we further compound the isolation because we're not like everybody else. Well, the reality of Facebook is, I got to be careful. Facebook has a propensity to make.
They're listening, by the way. Just they're probably listening.
And I got Facebook on this computer, so. But it's like we're trying to not be who we are instead of being who we are and look good or feel good or do it ourselves or get it out or, so the isolation issue, the disconnection continues on.
Mhm.
And it's just the opposite of what we need. I need hugs. I need connection with people that I can trust. I need I need that which feeds me, if you will. And the more I do that, the less I will be impacted. Now, that doesn't mean I won't be. It just means that there's going to be less of it, and I will have
Yeah.
buffers, and I'll have some things. And last but not least, and I should have put this number one, but praying, asking God for the simple things like, the thank you for being there. Who would you put on my heart? I talked to a couple people this week who, it was good for them. And I didn't think about it, just say, hey, why don't you call them? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So I think if we invite Christ into this journey and ask for his wisdom and his grace and who should I call, and have some people call me, and just the sense of being available. It's I talked to a pastor, let's see, what's I guess Saturday, somewhere in there last week. And we usually talk periodically and we're friends and all that stuff. And I said, so how are you? And he said, I'm okay. And I go, what does that mean? What does that mean? And he said, I'm really going through some stuff. He said, this disconnection, I haven't been into my office for better part of 3 weeks. It's like, seriously, why not? He goes, there's nobody there. What am I going to do, that I can't do here? Because I can pick up the phone, I can call people, I can follow up, I can check my emails, and all their stuff. And that's where some of this, but I don't have anybody to talk to. Love my wife, but that only works for so long. And we started talking about the reality of, hey, how you doing? Let's go get a cup of coffee. Hey, what's that about this weekend? What are you guys up to? Just like you said earlier, just the connection of the people over absolutely nothing conversations that makes us feel connected.
Yeah, I think we talked about this as well earlier. I think in to oversimplify what we are is we're storytellers.
Yeah.
And we're telling stories to ourselves all the time. And isolation can play with the stories we tell ourselves. And so we have to make sure we're telling ourselves the right stories. But then on the other end of that spectrum, as we're telling ourselves the right stories, is we're interpreters of other people's stories as well. And so if we're reaching out to people, there are times where they're going to interpret our stories for us in a way that'll bring life. And then there's ways that we can interpret their stories for them to bring life as well. Because I think, as we invite Jesus into this, as we invite the Holy Spirit to sort of guide our conversations, he gives insights that can give encouragement and life to people that they need for tomorrow and today. And the same for us, as we reach out, as we're strategic in making purposeful acts and reaching out and fighting isolation with connection, we begin to get a clearer picture of the story that we're telling ourselves and the stories that other people see God writing in our lives.
Yes, I think that's what we need to do. We need to be part of the story that's really going on, not the moment. One of the things that I see people do is take a moment and try to make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is the whole story. And it's like, no, it's not. This is just a frame in the movie, if you will. The thing that I use this example, and I really like it for me, is that when's the last time you went to the movies, or when's the last time you saw something on TV, and at the end of the show, they run the credits, right? We very often, who's the most important person on the screen? And the standard answer is the star.
Yeah, the lead.
Yes, or once in a while I get somebody who said, well, it's the person that wrote it or the director or all that other stuff. And I don't know what these people do, but I notice that they're always on the screen. I don't know what a key grip does. And I don't know what a best boy does, but they're always on the screen.
Yeah.
And then you start looking, okay, who else is on the screen? And it's really hard to make a movie without a camera. So if the cameraman doesn't show up, and then you got the sound guys, and you got lighting, and you've got wardrobe, and you've got all these things that are needed to make that production work. And it struck me one day, we need each other.
Yeah.
So how do we in this situation, how do we do that? How do we connect? How do we not just isolate and not just we need to take back to proactive, back to
Purposeful act.
Yeah, we need to do that. We need to we need to do that.
Yeah, I think that my takeaway really is that there's got to be a purposeful act. First of all, the acknowledgement. I think giving language to the fact that our connections are not the same. We are separated from what we know, and we are disconnected from everything we've been connected to. But that our hope here is not being stagnant and waiting it out. It's really having some purposeful action towards connection, making sure first and foremost that it's healthy connection with and not waiting for people to connect with us because they're also waiting for somebody to connect with them, and somebody's got to call bluff first.
Yeah.
It's a game of chicken, and both of you are running in the opposite direction. It's the wrong.
That's not a bad analogy. The asking God for wisdom, I do every day. I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, stupid's a step up for me. I have witnesses to that effect. But if I pray, if I ask for wisdom, if I take the first step, if I pick up the phone, if I do that, my day goes much better than if I don't do that. If I look at this and ask, okay, God, what do you want me to do today? Sometimes not much. Sometimes it's just sit and be still. Sometimes it's, read a book, catch up on your reading. I'm reading a couple of books right now, and it's good that I don't sit down and read one of them all the way through, because it's like kicking my butt. And but I think we need to understand that we're not here by accident. This is not something that God doesn't know about. This is not, God's not sitting up there in the heavens going, I don't know what to do with this girl. It's like, there's a reason for it. I don't know what the reason is. He didn't let me know. But the other side of that is, when we talk about safe people, I know I'm safe. Whatever happens, it's the way it's supposed to be. So I don't have to try to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I get to talk to you, and I get to talk to some other people, and it's like, there's the purposeful act on our part to try to do what God wants us to do, to love one another, to step out of our comfort zone, to pick up the phone, or to do the things that we waiting for other people, like you said, to do. So yeah.
And then always, let's be really keen to examine the stories we're telling ourselves.
If you can do that, it's huge.
Yeah.
If you can look at your story and say, You know, where am I and what's going on? I yell at God a lot for wisdom, and the story changes some days, and some days it's the same story. You know, yeah. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We need to look at our story, and we need to be involved in other people's stories. And it's just like I need to talk to you once in a while. I need to spend time with you. I need to know. I need to be engaged.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, you and I have committed now. We talk pretty frequently, actually, a couple times a month. But during all this, in the last couple weeks, we've said, hey, we need to spend more time together. So we put it on the calendar, and we do a phone call once a week now. And it's part of, for me, it's part of my own self-care, and it's what I call. I think there's some things that are like sacred selfishness, and or like self-care, if you want to put a fancy term on it. But I call it sacred selfishness. But that's part of my sacred selfishness for my sanity, to have somebody else look at the stories I'm telling myself and say, does this line up with what you see? And it's really important, especially now. This is not the time to like sort of withdraw. It's the time to double down on relationships that are healthy and that are mutually, especially if they're mutually beneficial and a blessing to both.
I think that's huge what you just said, that they need to be mutually beneficial. That doesn't mean that they're mutually beneficial each moment.
Yeah.
You know, there's days I'm not okay, and I call you up and you go, yeah, hey, what's up? You know, love you, care about you. You know, you're going to be okay. And there's days you call and go, hey, you know, you got a minute? And like, yeah. But when we look at the reason, if we look at what's going on, it is about connection. It is about the story, you know, and your story and my story are ongoing so far. You know, we're going to be around for, theoretically, a few more years, and we've got a story that's a never-ending story so far. So yeah, that's a purposeful act. That's a commitment. I need you in my world.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the sanest ways for us to sort of combat the isolation that exists as a natural byproduct of a very unnatural existence that we're living right now.
I totally agree with that.
Oh, we should end it on that.
Yeah, we should.
If you totally agree, man, we got to get out of here.
That didn't happen very often, but yeah, it's when I look at the Bible, if you look at it, it's nothing more than the story that God has written for us, and He shares it in all these different snippets and these little things and these little chapters. But it's all about stories, and it's a story about people and what God is doing with those people. You know, when you look at it, it's a storybook.
Yeah.
And I like that.
It is.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I like stories. So,
well, hey,
yeah, I would tell you that to kind of figure out what can I do tomorrow when the sun comes up. What can I do to not be isolated? What can I do to connect with somebody else? What can I do? And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be everybody in your world. It's the little things. And in the journey of recovery, we talk about one day at a time. You know, we don't try to fix it all at once.
Nope, one day at a time.
That's it.
Hey, you're awesome. Love you, man.
Love you too. Look forward to one of these days giving you a hug, because
yeah, I'm good at those.
Yeah, you are. And I like them. So
yeah, good.
All right, Signor. All right. Thank you much, and we will talk soon.
Let's do that.